Good evening. It is 6:37 on August 8th, 2023. We are starting a little bit late. I apologize. We had to make sure our technical functions were working correctly because we do have to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now a moment of silence. Thank you.
Thanks. I would like to announce that the board met in executive session at 6 o'clock this evening to discuss matters of personnel. Getting a message from one of the directors. Okay, great. Mrs. Martin, can you hear us?
I can.
Okay, may I please have a roll call?
Yes. Bucks,
Present.
England, Fowler,
Present.
Williams,
Present.
Murray,
Present.
Klein,
Present.
Erdman. Erdman,
Here.
Marlowe,
Here.
Nom,
Present.
Director England absent. All other members are present.
Director England is on the Zoom. Director England, can you unmute and speak?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Okay, we've got you now. Okay. Okay, Mrs. Martin, let's revise that to have all members present, please.
I will do that. All
Okay,
members
thank
are present.
Great, thank you. Item 2 on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda this evening. Everyone has had an opportunity to view the agenda, which was posted publicly. May I have a motion to adopt this evening's agenda?
Motion to adopt the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Director Erdman. Any discussion on tonight's agenda? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please indicate with an aye or a yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, my vote is also a yes. That means the motion carries unanimously. The agenda is adopted for this evening. Presentations, we do not have any this evening. No presentations for this evening. We'll move then to item 4, which is the report of the superintendent.
Yeah, a couple of things tonight. I want to start by he's going to be upset with me, but I did want to recognize Dr. Reist, who just defended his dissertation. Congratulations. One of the big things I think that one of the big topics all summer is the building and where we are with moving in, and will we be ready and will it be open? And I heard a lot of stories, a lot of rumors throughout the course of the summer. And I'm going to tell you where we stand with that. As of last Wednesday, our secretaries were given permission by our inspector to move in. So our administration and our secretaries for the building are over there working. District office hasn't moved yet, but hope to do so in the next 2 to 3 weeks. They're finishing up a few touch-up things and furniture and things like that. As of Monday, our teachers are in the building and they are unpacking, they are decorating, they are getting their rooms ready and putting pencil boxes out and everything else that elementary teachers do to make their rooms inviting for the kids. And they are excited to be able to get in there, and we were able to do it approximately a month before school started, so that there's a good amount of time for them to get settled in. On August 30th is our open house. Now, this is our traditional open house. We've done this for years on Wednesday and Thursday when we had 4 buildings. Now with just one, we only need one night, obviously. That particular night is for the students and their parents to come and meet their teacher, see their classroom. They have a scavenger hunt planned. I know they have some dessert, some ice cream and snow cone trucks planned for that. But another question that I've been getting is, can we get the rest of the community in that doesn't have kids, maybe high school kids, or maybe they've graduated from here and they want to see it? And the answer to that is absolutely. We intend we're waiting on some final things to make sure we have occupancy for the public. There was supposed to be a meeting today. I didn't hear the results, but we're working on a date for that. Our intention is to try to do it right shortly, a few days before open house, actually, so that anyone that wanted to come, even if they wanted to come to that and open house, if they have students there, could do so. But I know the rest of the public also wants to get in. And so once we get a final date that public's allowed in the building, we will do that. We will have that scheduled as well. I just want to give a shout out to two of our departments. Kirk is here running YouTube tonight. His tech guys, and you have no idea the amount of work between the phones, the internet, the security cameras, and the door locks and everything else that those guys have to take care of. And they have been working all summer. I keep yelling at Kirk, and he keeps telling me it has to get done, but he's here on weekends. He's here in evenings and putting in all kinds of work. And his guys are every second of the day are running around like crazy, but have done a fantastic job. And Mason and his crew also have just been unbelievable. If you think about the job of clearing out 4 different buildings, and getting all teachers, the libraries, the music rooms, the offices on skids, and moving those skids, and then having to move them into a building with 2 floors and trying to get them up in the appropriate classrooms, and all on top of the normal cleaning and the waxing of the floors that they do. They have been fantastic as well, and done a great job. I know they look forward to getting settled in and getting back to normal routines. But in the meantime, I think they deserve to be recognized. And real quickly, want to mention that a couple of weeks ago, we had our administration retreat. I will say that's a time I look forward to because despite all the chaos, we get to spend a little bit of time together talking about some of the things that are important, more important than what color curtains need to be picked out for rooms in a renovation. That's focusing on academics and talking about our kids and how we meet the needs of our kids. It was 4 very good days of planning and preparation as we looked at goals for this coming year. And it was the wrap up. I talked about the book study we did this year in terms of instructional leadership, a wrap up of that, and deciding how to utilize that information in the next year. So that ended a couple weeks ago, and we had a good time, but we also talked about some incredibly important things. Other than that, it's been boxing up things, moving, dealing with 1,000 construction questions, and on top of normal summer stuff, and then trying to get a little family time as well. And we're in August, and looking forward to September 5th, the first day of school. So that's the end of my report.
Great. Thank you. Good report. Any questions for Dr. Messinger? Okay, thank you. Item 5, old business. Is there any old business to bring to the board today? Okay, hearing none, we will move to the public comment portion of this evening's meeting. All individuals wishing to participate in this board meeting were asked to register their intent with the board secretary by 3 p.m. today, unless specifically advertised differently. That registration for intent included the name of the participant, topic to be addressed, and group affiliation if applicable. Participants must be recognized by the presiding officer and must preface their comments by an announcement of their name and group affiliation if applicable. Just want to note that you do not have to state your address. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 4 minutes duration. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No participant may address or question school board directors individually. That is reading from the School Board Policy 903. I understand that we do have 2 items for public comment this evening. The first is Mr. Joseph Murphy.
Joseph Murphy. I'm a parent of two students here in the district. I'm still concerned about the facility use policy, especially the wording of the single use facilities. We obviously don't have enough or any at all. And I know there's a statement in there that says, yes, we are going to do all we can to build them. But in my years as an academic administrator, that's a sticky statement to put in there, because if someone challenges that policy, first thing they're going to ask for is, all right, you say you're going to build them, show me a contract. Show me the funding you have available for those. Show me the vote that you took to do that. So that really concerns me on this. And you've all heard my spiel. I think this policy divides the district. It doesn't bring them together. My other concern is I heard a conversation during the meeting about creation being taught in the science curriculum. Before I was here, I taught at a Christian university, Charleston Southern University in Charleston, South Carolina. We don't need this. If there are folks that want to teach this, rent out the auditorium, do a weekend course on creation. What we could use that'll help everyone in the district, every student. I have an alternative. How about artificial intelligence? That's invading every sector of our lives. So if we want to make sure these kids are ahead and they need the knowledge they need to go forward with, that would be a better alternative than teaching creation.
Our district is failing the majority of its students. We're ranked in the bottom 50% of public schools in Pennsylvania. Our math proficiency is 30% and our ELA is around 48%. 83% of our students are performing below average. We are bleeding money to cyber charter schools. You can't blame those numbers on fictitious trans threats that haven't happened yet. You aren't preparing the majority of graduating seniors for anything but disappointment, struggles, and debts. We spend an average of just over $16,000 per student. I know that I personally haven't seen enough return on my investment, and I know more people would say the same thing. You've raised taxes higher than I've ever seen in a district in Lebanon County ever do, because you've spent more than you should have on the field house. Now you're going to end up penny pinching the high school repairs because you don't have the money to do what should be really done, because you're not focused on education. But I'm sure the gyms will be outstanding. This district has so many issues that I can imagine it's difficult to choose which one takes top priority. But I can't understand how a fictitious scenario about a fictitious boogeyman was the issue that got its own committee and fast-tracked policy to be addressed. This isn't about student safety. It's about egos and a self-righteousness that is even worse than the regime that served before you. You see, when I brought up the horror stories I'd heard from parents and students, I was told by the former director, England, that people only come to me with the negatives. There's a lot more positives out there. I was told to stop bringing up the negatives and let the positives shine. The problem was that the negatives have always outweighed the positives at NL for the greater majority of the student body. Students have suffered in our district for decades. They've always been and always will be the collateral damage on your paths to holy vindication. I've never seen this board truly focus on education. I've listened to every single complaint about field house use and field usage and mat rooms, but I've never seen any focus on curriculum or actual useful ways to provide equal education opportunities to all students. You do know that's the point of public school, right? I don't care if people hate me. I'm still going to fight for their kids to get the same opportunities yours get. I'll just do it without putting others down or blaming it on trans kids. You don't get to use student safety as your focus because this policy still doesn't address the issues that really happen in our bathrooms, hallways, and classrooms. It addresses no issues because they don't exist. You clearly stated that there has been no issue or request that you've been made aware of. This is disgusting, pathetic, and cowardly. I have more respect for the brave students who returned to this building after being physically assaulted just the week before that than I do for all but one of you on this school board. President Nam, I now see why you wanted me to stay on. You wanted to muzzle me. You should have muzzled your fellow board member and his wife because their little interview and the harm your unnecessary and ridiculous policy could and will cause has lit a fire that guarantees I'll burn every bridge I helped any of you or the 5 build to get here, even if it means I'll burn with it. I don't want to be here. I want to go watch my son play soccer because it's the one moment I can forget the hell of this survival I'm in. But what I've said tonight isn't said with any intent or expectation to change your small minds. It never has been. It's a loudspeaker for me to let others know they're not alone and someone else sees this insanity and power grabs for unearned entitlements hidden behind fake care and piety. You'll spend all this time on things that could happen to your kids, but spend no time doing anything to change or stop the horrible things actually happening to our kids.
Okay, we will move to items for board action for this evening. We'll move to items for board action for this evening. Should be noted that public notice was given for this meeting in accordance with Act 84 of 1986. By notice of the president, the following action requires a voice vote. All votes in favor shall be stated with an aye or yes. All votes opposed shall be stated with a nay or no. All members abstaining shall state I abstain when prompted. The votes will be recorded in the minutes as a unanimous roll call vote unless there are any votes in opposition or abstention. If necessary, the president may subsequently call for a roll call vote to be recorded in the minutes. The first item for board action is item 8, the consent agenda. We do have under the consent agenda that was covered during the committee meeting last week, items 8.1 through 8.9. Is there a motion to adopt this evening's consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Great, thank you. Director Klein with the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the consent agenda this evening? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of approving items 8.1 through 8.9, please indicate with an aye or a yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Are there any abstentions? I happen to know that Director England did provide an abstention to the secretary this afternoon. Director England, are you able to speak?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
In front of me, so I wasn't aware, but yes, I will vote in favor other than abstaining from the substitution list as I have family members who are listed there.
Great, thank you. Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, my vote is also yes. The consent agenda passes unanimously with the one abstention indicated by Director England. We will move now to item 9. These are the items for discussion this evening. Dr. Messinger.
Yeah, 9.1 is the policy that was discussed last week a little bit. And it has been discussed for the last couple of months. It's the draft of the facilities by students policy, use of facilities.
Is there a motion to adopt item 9.1, the policy for adoption this evening?
Make a motion to adopt.
Director Marlowe has made a motion to adopt. Is there a second?
Second.
Director Erdman was the first second. Is there any discussion on item 9.1?
This is Director Bucks. I would like to make a comment.
Yes, please go ahead.
So we're at a crossroads at Northern London. This is not an easy or a simple issue, and we have a choice. We can be creative, we can listen and learn from various groups, and we can develop policies and procedures that actually facilitate students' comfort, understanding, empathy, and inclusion of others. Or we can create policies as knee-jerk reactions that do not really solve perceived problems, but will actually create more confusion, more division, more work for our staff, and a less inclusive environment for all students. We do not have the physical spaces to create the facilities that are proposed within this policy. And with a constant shortage of teachers, we do not have the staff to properly monitor these additional facilities, especially the locker rooms. If the concern or perceived problem is student privacy, then I'm not sure how this policy is doing anything to actually help individual students feel more secure. Students will still be undressing in front of peers. This policy is not creating more physical private spaces for individual students. Students will still continue judging one another in the locker rooms. students will still feel vulnerable and self-conscious. Without more staff supervision, students will still be acting inappropriately in the locker rooms. It does not matter if the peers in the locker rooms or bathrooms are cisgender or transgender students. Unless students have adequate private spaces and supervision, they will still continue to feel uncomfortable. Furthermore, this policy does not create a more supportive, empathetic, and non-judgmental student community. There was mention of the perceived opinion that we need this policy to keep students safe. It seems that the assumption by some people is that transgender students may be a threat to cisgender students. In reality, there is a much greater incidence of cisgender people attacking transgender people in bathrooms. Anti-discrimination policies have existed for decades, providing the right of transgender people to use the facilities of their gender identity. And there is no evidence to suggest that trans people using bathrooms of their gender identity pose any risk to cis people, and no evidence that this risk leads to the attack on cisgender people. Transgender inclusive policies are not a risk to cisgender people. In stark contrast, discriminatory facility policies have a significant negative impact on the mental health of transgendered students. We have heard from families of the LGBTQ+ students that this proposed policy would be harmful. In the Journal of Adolescent Health, they found that transgender and non-binary youth who experienced bathroom discrimination had more than 1.5 times the odds of attempting suicide in the past year compared to those who did not experience bathroom discrimination. The Trevor Project's 2022 national survey found that more than half of transgender and non-binary youth seriously considered suicide in the past year, and nearly 1 in 5 attempted suicide. 71% of transgender and non-binary youth reported that they have experienced discrimination based on their gender identity, and those who have reported significantly higher rates of attempting suicide in the past year compared to those who have not. Policies like this proposed bathroom policy have the very real potential to harm the mental health of transgender students. And in many ways, I personally think that this could harm the mental health of all students. Policies like these say to all students that the policymakers and staff do not hear your concerns and do not honor your individual experiences and needs. The American School Counselor Association adopted in 2016 and revised in 2022 a resolution about restrooms and locker rooms. This states that students have the right to use restrooms and locker rooms matching their gender identity. Schools should work with transgender and non-binary students to ensure they feel safe and can use the selected facilities with dignity. Upon request from any student requesting additional privacy, schools should provide alternatives such as a single-user bathroom and curtains or stalls in changing areas. This goes on to say that schools must make every effort to only reveal information about students' gender identity when others have a legitimate educational purpose, which does not include mitigating possible discomfort of others. That was from the American School Counselor Association, but similar policies or resolutions have been adopted by the American Medical Association and the American Psychological Association. Current procedures at NL allow individualized bathroom plans for transgender students. Individual plans allow staff to more easily create a more equitable and welcoming environment for students. Students learn best when they feel a sense of worth, inclusion, and belonging. The current procedures for establishing appropriate facilities use for transgender students include a collaboration between the students, administration, and counselors. I believe this procedure is much better for the mental health of students. As a school board member, I try to make decisions based upon research, discussion, science, and practicality. For all of these reasons, I feel that this policy would be harmful to all students mentally, physically, and in preparing them for the future. As I reflect on my decision as a school board member, which is based on facts, with my feelings about this policy as a person of faith, the two solidly align. As a Christian, my understanding of Jesus is that he always stood with and stood up for the most vulnerable and the outcast. Jesus extended a hand to the marginalized and the minorities in society. Jesus left the 99 sheep to seek the one lonely lost sheep. Jesus loves all people and welcomes all people, and Jesus loves transgender people. I believe Jesus would want us to create an inclusive environment for both cis and transgender students, and I don't think this policy would do that. That concludes my remarks.
Great. Thank you, Director Bucks. Any other comments? Director Marlowe?
Sure. Just a couple comments, because I think our intent, which I think Director Bucks mentioned there a few times, has been to make sure we are creating a safe environment for all students, truly all students, making sure there's clarity for administrators so they understand the policy and how it should be managed, and then ultimately clarity for students, teachers, or students, parents, and the community as a whole. This policy, again, is not perfect, and I think we've said that over and over as we've debated it, but I do think it does address a few things. The one comment that was made was about not having enough single-use bathrooms. This policy kind of puts us on a path, a direction to say this is what we're going to do, that we understand that is a need for the future. So it really kind of strikes that path for us. The other item as it relates to safety, I want to make sure it's very clear from my side that, when I say we're doing this to make sure we have a safe environment for all students, never was that intended to be that a trans student is an unsafe student, or a trans student would be the one that creates an unsafe environment. It's the environment as a whole that we're creating by not having clarity around the use of these facilities that I believe creates that environment. We are talking about 13 to 18-year-old kids, and left to themselves, we all know that can be a challenge altogether. So put that on top of this topic, which is charged, and we've then created or not made sure that we have a safe environment. So that's the intent. I want to make sure that's very clear, that I don't think there's anyone on the committee or the board that felt like we had to put this in place because trans students create an unsafe environment. I want that to be very clear.
Thank you, Director Marlowe. Any other comments?
I would like to.
Yep, go ahead.
I
Director Fowler.
I have no doubts in saying that I trust that every one of the school board members here, and most of us have been together for 4 years, truly want to do what is best for all the students of the Northern Lebanon School District. I also would willingly admit that I'm not sure there's a policy that would possibly make me happy in the middle of this. I would also willingly admit that in high school, I did not enjoy locker rooms and bathrooms. Maybe I was not cool enough to do so. But what I love about our current policy is it allows us to play up to one of the strengths of being a small school district, which is we can handle situations privately and with the advice of the administration and particularly the school counselors, that they can handle each person on an individual basis and provide them that. As somebody who raised 30 foster children, I was very blessed that the school district did not go around advertising that my children were foster children, because they too would have experienced bullying and negative impact, because it is different to be a foster child. And so I like our current policy because I think it plays up to the benefit we have as a small community. And I miss the time when small communities trusted one another, when we trusted the counselors and trusted the teachers to make decisions that honored each individual student. And I feel like this policy distracts from that trust and puts supervision that I don't think we need. I do not see, we have not had a problem with this issue. The science, the discussion around this is almost assuredly going to change legally and psychologically over the next few years. And so I would much rather stay with where we've been than change and then need to potentially change again very shortly.
Thank you, Director Fowler. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, I would just like to provide a few final comments of my own. I recognize, and we've said this from the very start, from the time that we initiated the committee meeting, that this is an issue that none of us necessarily wanted to deal with, but we know that it's an issue that our culture is dealing with, that our society is dealing with, that our schools are dealing with. We also know that this question strikes at the heart of very deeply held beliefs. I mean, we've heard it even tonight that this touches on questions of faith. It touches on questions of civics. It touches on questions of everything. I have said from this position multiple times, and I will probably say it for as long as I'm on the board, whether that ends in November or if it continues for another 4 years. I've said this multiple times. I believe that one of the fundamental tasks of a school director is to balance the many competing interests that a school district represents. We do have competing interests on this issue here in the school. We have competing interests on every issue that we face. I do believe that this policy, while not perfect, I agree with Pastor Fowler that I don't think there's a policy that would make me completely happy. I don't think there's a policy that would make any single person in this district completely happy. Having said that, I also believe that the problem that we have right now, I respectfully disagree, is that we do not have a current policy that makes it clear to all students and all parents and all community members. As it is, we've had to move on an ad hoc basis, on an individual basis. And those individual determinations, while I think they have been to this point appropriate, do have a collective and cumulative impact. I believe that this policy is a good faith effort to balance all of those interests. I just want to be clear that this policy does not exclude transgender students from using a bathroom that identifies with their gender identity. In fact, it specifically makes that provision. So transgender students will be using a bathroom that corresponds with their gender identity, along with every other student that identifies by that gender. But what I think this policy does appropriately is provides an opportunity for other students to also use a facility in a state of undress and a needed privacy that also accommodates their needs as well. That is the balancing of interests that I think this policy attempts to do. I agree. Lots of things are changing. The science may change. The laws may change. Policies are meant to be adopted. They're meant to be revised. They're meant to be withdrawn, and we can and will adopt a new policy as that becomes necessary. Ultimately, I think this policy is one that is reflective of the advice of council. We believe that council was solid advice. I believe that this policy fully comports with law as it stands right now. And as I said, I do believe that it attempts to provide an accommodation for all students. With that said, we will move this issue to a vote. Mrs. Martin, I would like to have a roll call vote on policy 9.1. And I would also first like to note that we identified that Dr. Messinger, our solicitor, identified a typo on the agenda. This was presented in the committee meeting as a final adoption, as we did have a separate committee that developed policy. So tonight, the vote on 9.1.
I cannot hear.
Sorry, it wasn't there. I will start the vote now. Bucks,
I could not hear the last like 30 seconds. The sound went out. Could you start off? The last thing I heard was that in the committee meeting, it was proposed as the final adoption and then it went out.
It was, yes, thank you. It was indicated on the committee meeting that tonight's vote would be a final adoption of the policy, but when the agenda was drafted, it was indicated as a tentative. So this is a final adoption of the policy. Is there a second on the change on the agenda to note this as a final adoption?
I second the change of the agenda.
Okay. All in favor of the change on the agenda, please indicate with an aye or a yes.
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 Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, that is, we'll take a roll call vote on the agenda change. Mrs. Martin, could you please take a roll call vote on the change of naming the policy from a tentative to a final adoption?
yes. Bucks,
No.
England,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Murray. Murray. Klein,
Yes.
Erdman.
Yes.
I didn't hear Erdman.
He said yes.
Yes.
Marlowe,
Yes.
Nom,
Yes.
one no, the remainder, yes.
Okay, thank you. So that agenda item will be changed, and now we will move to a roll call vote on adoption of the policy itself. Mrs. Martin?
England,
Yes.
Fowler,
No.
Williams,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Erdman,
Yes.
Marlowe,
Yes.
Nom,
Yes.
Bucks.
No.
That would be 7 yes, 2 no, motion carried.
Great, thank you. We will move now to item 9.2.
9.2 is the curriculum for science, grades 7, 8, 9 and biology. I believe there was some discussion at that at committee and it was asked to be moved to the discussion items. Mr. Murphy, I don't know if you're out there. I did want to just touch on one thing. Creationism is not in the curriculum per se. What's in the curriculum is Darwin's theory of evolution, which I think was the discussion last week, and whether or not the wording was appropriate in the way it was worded in curriculum. The theory itself, or I'm not I'm not really great a scientist. Dr. Bucks could probably, so if I'm saying a theory of creationism is actually not part of the state standards and is not directly in there. Now, a student might use that to defend or critique the theory of evolution, which would be appropriate. We teach, and I'll just state for the board, you know, we teach our kids to defend both sides of an argument. For instance, my son was telling me about his history class and how one group of students had defend the use of the atomic bomb in World War II, and another set of students had to defend the point of not using the atomic bomb. Didn't matter what they believed, and we would never, and I want to clarify that and say that in public, and if we do, we would address it with the teacher. We would never grade a student on what they believe. but instead would grade them under the understanding of the material they were presenting and defending there. So if you're using my atomic bomb theory, we would expect the student to understand the positives of using the atomic bomb in World War II. We would also expect a student to critique that by what would have happened if they didn't, and the reasons why you wouldn't. Same sort of thing applies here. Does that help? So these are up. These are actually the same. These would have been final as well for adoption.
Okay,
So you
great.
do a voice on that, and then any discussion on.
Okay. Okay, so as Dr. Messinger said, we do need to make a change on this agenda item as well. This should also be a final adoption, not a tentative adoption. Is there a motion to make that change on the agenda?
Motion to change
the
agenda.
agenda.
Okay, Director Marlowe, I'll take his motion as the motion. Director Murray, I will count yours as the second. All in favor of making that change to the agenda, please indicate with it.
I have a question quick.
Yes, go ahead.
How were these presented at a previous meeting? If so, I don't recall that. How can they be the final? I just want clarification on that. What justifies that?
They were not presented at a previous meeting. The idea would have been a tentative at the committee meeting with the final tonight. If that's not allowed, then we will change that. Brooke, can you?
Honestly, I've never been asked about that for curriculum. I'm not even familiar with your process for a tentative and a final moving from month to month. I can look it up here quickly. The only policy-based requirements that I'm familiar with are about policy, and that is not even that's not founded in law. That's founded in policy, that there's a first and second reading. So let me look it up quickly.
And if you need time, if we need time, the board meeting in September is soon enough that we could do the final adoption. We're gonna have.
Do you have internet? Okay, just pull it up and I'll take a look at it
We're going to only have
in the 100s.
a few days of instruction at that point.
I have it up with Brad. Okay.
Is this the very first time that we have ever considered a committee meeting to be a first approval for anything? I do not recall this type of procedure in the past. Why is it changing now?
Director Bucks, as was explained, when we have adopted curriculum in the past, we have never done a tentative and a final adoption. We have presented the curriculum in the context of the committee meeting, and then we have had one vote on the adoption of curriculum to our knowledge, and we are checking on the policy at this point. But to our recollection and knowledge, there's never been two votes on curriculum, just a committee meeting and a final vote.
And I'll correct that.
Okay, that makes sense then. I was just tripped up because we seemingly changed it when we were talking about the policy. Because in the past, policies always came to a monthly voting meeting for first approval, and then they came to the next month voting meeting for final approval. And so I thought it seemed at first as though we were kind of changing it for a lot of things. Thank you for the clarification.
And I just want to say, I think there have been times to allow the board a little more time to look through. Some things, and sometimes we don't have a committee meeting. Like December, we only have one meeting. So if we bring it up there, it could be a tentative. I actually think we have done a tentative 1 month and a final in another month. It's not required. The thought process for the committee meeting last week when it was put on, and again, I apologize, I was on vacation and trying to do things from the beach, sorry. But I think the thought process was to have it in place for the beginning of the year. Understanding there was some discussion about particularly, I think, the biology curriculum. And I'm hoping we can work through that tonight. But again, the September meeting, if it needs to be delayed, the September meeting is very early on in the process. And I think we'd be okay.
Okay.
I did a cursory review. I don't see anything in policy that requires a first and second reading, and I don't have any memory of it. And talking to Dr. Rice, he said that we may have done that at times in the past, not out of policy, out of some sort of practice or treating it like policy. But to my knowledge, there's no legal requirement for that, and it has been out for one prior meeting.
Okay. Director Bucks, did you hear the solicitor?
I did, thank you.
Okay.
My concern was not over that this would be a final adoption. I support that. It seemed to me that we were changing procedures in a way that I didn't understand and perhaps seemed unjustified, but I understand it now. Thank you.
Yeah, understood. It was a question of process. I appreciate that. But Dr. Messinger, the recommendation is that this be put up for final adoption.
Again, we couldn't postpone till September. I think that was the intention.
Okay.
And due to some staffing concerns and things, challenges last week, I'm not sure what was discussed last week in terms of that specific topic. I know the concerns in the curriculum itself. I don't remember, from a tentative, if there was even discussion from a tentative or final standpoint.
We did not put it to a vote last week. And also to clarify, the action under consent for the curricular items was also only a tentative adoption this evening.
And
I
then
would suggest that we follow through with tentative tonight and final next month.
I agree. In that case, I think it's tentative. The board meeting is early enough in September that it's not going to alter anything that we do. So a tentative adoption.
Okay.
And we'll do a final.
I've lost sound again.
Okay, hearing no questions, is there a motion to adopt item 9.2?
Mr. President,
Yes, Director England.
I don't know if this is the right place to do it. You cut out for a little while, so I lost a little bit of the discussion there. I did review the SEAL standards, and it appears to me that a 2-word addition would be very helpful to bring the biology learning target into alignment with the state standards. So if we're voting tentatively tonight and then final for next month, I would make a motion to approve the curriculum when stated as follows, quote, students will be able to argue evidence that supports and critiques the theory of evolution, end quote.
Can you identify the page, Director England? Do you have that with you? I'm looking for it now.
I don't have it with me. It's the next to last page of the biology curriculum under learning targets. I think it's on page 14. I don't recall the specific number.
Okay. So this is
third, something like that, learning targets on the left-hand side.
okay. So
we just add the 2 words and critiques.
critique. Okay, that would be on, the second to last page. On the curriculum, it'd be 3.1.9-12.x
That was
under the learning targets. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't feel it is appropriate for us to be inserting words in curriculum that our teachers worked on and that was approved by the department chair. If curriculum is going to be modified, that should come through them. I don't think it is fair for us to insert words on something they approved because our insertion of words may make that not appropriate to them, even though their name is on that.
And I'll just say that a couple of people reached out to me about this in the discussion last week. And I think as a whole, it sounds like, the work of that team was very much appreciated. I know the topic of evolution came up in terms of that, I do know, and I did point out, I sent the steel standards along with their overarching things. And I think that I agree with Director England that the wording, it does say, does use the word defend and critique in the steel standards. And that's an overarching goal of their standards. I also agree with Director Bucks that the teachers have clearly worked incredibly hard on this, and don't want to certainly don't want to adopt something or change something that that they wholeheartedly support and believe in, because they are the experts in their fields, and they put a lot of time into this. I certainly am willing to ask the question of the teachers that worked on this. There's 3 names on that document. And I certainly can point out that standard that Director England mentioned. Again, that was something I sent to the board when I think last Friday. And check and verify, their opinion about that change.
We take a vote on that change. Okay. 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 Are there any other questions, not discussion, but questions for Dr. Messinger? Okay, then at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to vote on item 9.2 as a tentative curriculum adoption. The recommendation or request has been made for the administration to go back to the curriculum team and discuss that possible modification as identified by Director England. So we're not going to take a vote on that proposed modification. Instead, what we're going to do is take a vote on the tentative adoption of the curriculum, which would then go up for a final vote next month. Any questions regarding that before I receive a motion to adopt this? Okay, is there a motion to adopt item 9.2 as a tentative curriculum adoption?
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Bucks. Is there a second?
Second.
Director Erdman was the second. Mrs. Martin, may I please have a roll call vote on item 9.2?
Yes. Fowler,
Yes.
Before we take the
Williams.
vote, are we allowed to?
Wait. Hold on.
Are
Point
we
of
allowed
order.
to make a comment?
The vote has started. Yes, you're right. You're correct. Point of order. We're going to retake the vote. I did not open up to discussion. Thank you, Director Williams. There's been a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
I'd just like to make a comment if I could, please.
Yes.
So to begin, I just want to thank Dr. Messinger for taking the time to provide me with some information that gave me some clarification on this matter of the science curriculum. I also just want to take a moment to speak on some comments that I made last week. My concerns with this curriculum do not involve our teachers or their integrity or their abilities to teach our students. I know that our teachers are required to follow state mandates related to the curriculum. Thus, they must include all the requirements of that curriculum in their lesson plans. The teachers in Northern Lebanon School District have my complete support for the work that they do. It takes a special kind of person to teach, mentor, and develop the next generation of leaders, and I'm extremely proud of the faculty of our district. Knowing that the state has mandated requirements for curriculum, my objections, very frankly, lie more with the state than with our teachers. So my objections to some of the mandated, not all of the curriculum, but some of the mandated curriculum are based on fundamental principles of opposing worldviews. Now, I can stand here or sit here all night and argue that up until the early 1960s, the Christian Bible was consistently used in teaching in public schools, but we don't have time for that this evening. I could also argue that the words or phrase separation of church and state is not found in any of our country's founding documents, but that it was a phrase used by Thomas Jefferson after he was elected as our third president some 20 years after the Constitution is ratified, when writing a response letter to some Baptist pastors, assuring them that the government will not infringe upon their religious freedoms. But again, we don't have time for that this evening. I could also argue that the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment was written to keep government out of religion, not to keep religion out of government. But again, we don't have time for that this evening. I will say, however, that the phrase separation of church and state and the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment have been misinterpreted and abused during our country's history, which is why we are where we are as a nation today. I will, however, take a moment to clarify my objections to this curriculum. While my Christian worldview leads me to believe in an alternate theory to evolution and to the Big Bang Theory, these are major topics within the curriculum. My objections are not solely based on my Christian worldview, however. One of the ongoing criticisms that I hear, and I even heard it again tonight, relate to our district's perceived lack of high academic standards. One way to help our students achieve higher academic standards is by giving them opportunities to develop and improve in their critical thinking skills, something that Dr. Messinger just mentioned a little while ago. One requirement of the curriculum that is found in life science, and the number is 3.1-6.8, it says, and I quote, apply scientific ideas to construct an explanation for anatomical similarities and differences among modern organisms and between modern and fossil organisms to infer evolutionary relationships. Essentially, what this requirement is saying that our students, after applying scientific ideas, can only come to one conclusion, and that conclusion is evolution. The reason I bring this up is because in other areas of this Steele's mandated curriculum, students are encouraged to compare and contrast multiple perspectives, systems, and designs. In the technology and engineering section 3.5.6-H, 3.5.6-8H says, and I quote, evaluate trade-offs based on various perspectives as part of a decision process that recognizes the need for careful compromises among competing factors, end quote. In the ETS curriculum in 3.5.6-8P, quote, evaluate competing design solutions using a systematic process to determine how well they meet the criteria and constraints of the problem, end quote. In section 3.5.6-8U, quote, evaluate and assess the strengths and weaknesses of various design solutions given established principles and elements of design, end quote. So why are our students only encouraged to use critical thinking skills in these areas of science and technology, but not in the other areas of science? General statements is something that Director England had brought up earlier. I would really like to see some sort of statements that gives the students an opportunity to use their critical thinking skills and to be able for critique and criticisms on on what's being taught. So, but in all honesty, even with those changes or amendments to the curriculum, I would be opposed to the curriculum based on what I just stated.
Great. Thank you, Director Williams. Any other discussion?
This is Director Bucks. I'd like to make some short comments. I know that some directors have raised the concern about critical thinking and
Hold on. Director Bucks, I understand that you have something to discuss.
yes.
You weren't coming through.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll keep my comments short. There have been comments made regarding students with developing critical thinking and concern about student beliefs or opinions being criticized or not accepted as part of answers or something like that. And I just want to emphasize that in science, when we defend something, it has to be based on scientific evidence. If we are thinking critically about a scientific topic, we have to think about evidence that supports both sides of an issue. And so a belief or an opinion would not be something that would be appropriate to bring to the table for that type of question. It wouldn't be included in that type of critical thinking, not in a science class. And so I think that those concerns are largely a moot point, because when you're asked to, in a science class, it needs to be anything that you present in science needs to be backed up by evidence. And so faith-based beliefs, although are very valid and very real to individuals, they aren't science. We can't create an experiment. It's not measurable. It's not repeatable. It may feel very real to an individual, but it's not the basis of science. And so I think that is perhaps, hopefully, might ease some concerns that questions in a science class are largely not going to pertain to beliefs and opinions. And I just want to further emphasize that I don't think it is a school board's role to be micromanaging curriculum. Our teachers know their students best. Our teachers know the state standards best and mandates best, and they know their content, especially the content that they need to teach to specific grades. They know that better than we do. And I think if we start micromanaging curriculum, it sends a clear signal to teachers, both currently in the district and thinking about coming to the district, that we do not trust them and that we do not honor their expertise. And frankly, I think that is frightening for a teacher because they're the experts on this and they know how to teach students of K through 12 students better than we do. So I just think we need to be mindful of that if we start micromanaging curriculum and questioning the expertise of our teachers, we're going back decades for Northern Lebanon.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'm just going to give a shameless plug to the Northern Lebanon Ministerium that has about 20 churches who are preparing for release time. So if your children are interested in the 4th grade, that is a possibility we will do for the school district. And the 20 churches in the school district are absolutely as supportive as possible to the school district and will fund that program themselves.
Any other comments regarding the curriculum? Okay, with that, we'll make a third attempt. Mrs. Martin, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, let's try again. A roll call vote on item 9.2, the tentative adoption of the science curriculum.
Fowler,
Yes.
Williams,
No.
Murray,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Erdman,
Yes.
Marlowe,
Yes.
Nom,
Yes.
Bucks,
Yes.
England,
No.
that'd be 7 yes, 2 no, motion carried.
Great, thank you. And this will be up again next month for final adoption. Okay, 9.3, moving along, employment.
Okay, the list of winter coaches and spring head coaches are there for, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one. We have a couple of employments there, general education aide listed for you as well as a paraprofessional listed for this upcoming school year.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Dr. Messinger? Okay, is there a motion to adopt item 9.3?
Motion to adopt 9.3.
Okay, Director Williams, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Director Marlowe, second. Thank you. Is there any discussion on item 9.3? Okay, hearing none, we'll just do a voice vote. All in favor of adopting item 9.3, please indicate with a yes or an aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, my vote is also a yes. Item 9.3 carries unanimously. We'll move to 9.4.
Dan, you said we would debate everything. That was 9-0. So there you go. The 9.4 is approving the winter coach list and spring head coach list.
Any questions for Dr. Messinger on item 9.4? Okay, hearing no questions, is there a motion to adopt 9.4?
Motion to adopt.
Thank you, Director Marlowe. Is there a second? Director Erdman is the second. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. I will take a roll call vote on item 9.4. Mrs. Martin, please.
Williams? Williams?
I'm abstain.
Okay. Murray?
Yes.
Klein? Klein?
Yes.
Erdman?
Yes.
Was that a yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Marlowe?
Yes.
Nom?
Yes.
Bucks?
Yes.
England?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
That'd be 8 yes, 1 abstention, motion carried.
Thank you. That concludes our discussion agenda for this evening. Item 10 is our information item, Dr. Messinger.
It's the annual staff listing of where everyone is, including new hires and transfers up until this point. Red would highlight resignations, but that building list is attached for your information.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move to reports. Change order committee, Director Bucks, anything to report?
We gave Dr. Messinger permission to approve those change orders over the summer. So there have been no change order meetings since June.
Great, thank you.
And I just piggyback that we put that amount at 20,000. There haven't been any over that. Anything that was approved is listed under the website under change orders. I believe it was attached last week too as well. So anything that I've had to approve was on the agenda last week.
Okay, thank you. CTC Director Klein.
I have a CTC monthly newsletter. I'll hand to everybody after the meeting. I don't have anything to report. We didn't have a meeting last month, but I will be Director Marlowe will be attending in my place in next week. Thank you.
Great, thank you. IU13 Director Murray, any report?
No update at this time.
Okay, thank you. Legislative Liaison Director England.
No report tonight.
Okay. PSBA Director Bucks.
Ditto, no report tonight.
Okay, thank you. I would, well, is there any new business to bring to the board tonight? Okay, there is none. Dates to remember, just please note those dates to remember. This is the last board meeting of the summer. The next board meeting we have will be during the next school year. We're all looking forward to that, with especially the opening of the new elementary school. And then that's it. At this point, I'll receive a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Director Marlowe. Is there a second? Director Erdman, thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of adjourning tonight's meeting, please indicate with an aye or a yes.
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 Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion carries unanimously. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.